In this week's Parsha, we read about the death of Aaron. And the Torah tells us that all of the Jewish people cried when Aaron died. Kol b'nei Yisrael. The Medrash contrasts this to a similar pasuk that we find by the death of Moshe. There the pasuk says, Vayivchu b'nei Yisrael, that the Jewish people cried, but it doesn't say Kol b'nei Yisrael, all of the Jewish people. Why is that? The Medrash explains that Aaron was an Ohev Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. Aaron was a person who ran after peace and loved peace. Whenever there was an argument between two people, he would try to make peace between them. He tried to get them to come to some kind of compromise. He would try to make everybody happy and everybody get along. Moshe was a judge. Moshe was the shofet. And therefore, Moshe had to make decisions. Does he side with one person or does he side with the other person? And therefore, some people were not so happy with Moshe that when he sided against them. Does this mean that Aaron's approach was better than Moshe? Because Aaron made everybody happy and Moshe didn't? Absolutely not. The Medrash tells us that Moshe and Aaron were equal. We find that sometimes the Torah writes the name of Moshe before Aaron, and sometimes the Torah writes the name of Aaron before Moshe to teach us that they were equal. Were Moshe and Aaron truly equal? We know that Moshe was the leader of the Jewish people. He was the Melech, he was the king. He was the greatest Navi, the greatest prophet to ever live. And he was the most humble of all people. Did Aaron accomplish those things? It seems to be that when analyzing Aaron and Moshe, that Moshe was the greater of the two brothers. So what does the Medrash mean that Moshe and Aaron were equal? Some of the commentaries explain that what it means is that the approach of Moshe and the approach of Aaron was equal. Moshe's approach was that when he had a decision to make between two people, he would decide, he would make that hard decision. He would look at who was right and he would say, you're right and you're wrong. Aaron, on the other hand, he would try to make peace between them. He would try to make some kind of compromise between the two people. Which approach is correct? Says the Medrash that Moshe and Aaron were equal. Their approaches are equal. Both approaches are valid approaches to decide which person is right and to side with them, or to try to make peace between the two of them so that no decision needs to be made at all. And therefore, we have people who can be Moshes of the world, and we have people who can be the Aarons of the world. And I think sometimes as well, you can have one person, and we ourselves sometimes we need to be that Moshe, and sometimes we need to be the Aaron. Many times we're in situations where we have to make a decision. Sometimes we can make a decision that's going to make everybody happy. Sometimes we can find creative solutions so that everyone can get along and everybody could come out on top. Other times, unfortunately, that's not the case. Sometimes we just have to make a decision who is right and who is wrong. Sometimes we have to make a decision, do we go down this path and do we go down that path? And when we make those difficult decisions, sometimes people may not be so happy with us, and sometimes people may resent us for the decision that we make. But just like Moshe made those hard decisions because those were the right decisions to make at that moment, we may often find ourselves in situations where we have to make the right but difficult decision, even when it's not going to be the popular decision. So we should learn from Aaron that when we should try to compromise. We should try to make peace between two people. We should try to make everybody happy. But often it's not possible to make everybody happy. And when that's the case, we have to look at the situation. We have to analyze it to the best of our ability. And we have to make the best decision that we could. We have to make that hard decision, even if it's not going to be a popular one, because that's what Hashem wants us to do. So that's the dual approach I would humbly suggest that we need to take to every decision, to every situation that we find ourselves in. We need to try to be that Aaron, to try to make everybody happy, to try to come up with those creative solutions where we can please everybody, but we also need to remember that sometimes we need to be the Moshe. The Moshe who maybe was slightly less popular than Aaron. We need to be the people who make the right decisions, the hard decisions, the decisions that is what Hashem wants us to do. And these are both, as the Medrash says, these are both valid ways of serving Hashem. These are both equal ways of serving Hashem in the right situations. And that's really all it comes down to. We want to always serve Hashem to the best of our abilities. So let's learn from our great leaders, Moshe and Aaron. Let's learn how they made decisions. Let's try to apply those to our life. And let's serve Hashem to the best of our ability. Have a great, great Shabbos.